welcome to Godot Game Dev Journey. Learn Godot game development 10 minutes at a time. Today we're going to look at character movement. All we want to be able to do by the end of this is move our character on the screen left and right and feel like we've accomplished a little bit of our game development goals. What you'll see here is I've opened the Godot screen and we're in the 3D view. I've started a new project and this is the default screen you get when you open it up. We're going to switch to 2D and here we have the viewport. So this is the section of the screen that is visible when your game is running. Now Godot works with scenes which are built up using nodes. On the left here you can see the scene tree, then we have our file system where we can import game assets, art and sound effects and so on, and then on the right we have our inspector where we'll be able to view the properties of a node. Now we're going to add a simple 2D node. We can do it by clicking on the plus and searching for node. There we have node 2D. The other way to do it is just to click on 2D scene and it's automatically going to give you a node 2D. Here you can see the properties of this node 2D. We can go ahead and rename this node 2D to player. This will be our player or our character. Now we can't see anything because our player has no image or texture associated with it. So what you can do is you can go and get any texture you like off the internet, maybe from a site like opengameart.org, and you can just drag and drop it in over here. Here's one that I got earlier. It's a little picture of an airship. Now I can either click on the plus and search for Sprite and add a sprite to my player node, or I can just grab my airship and drop it in, and you see there it says it's adding a sprite. So I drop it in and my airship sprite immediately becomes a child of the player. Here's my sprite. If we look at the properties of the sprite, we'll see that the sprite is taking up almost the entire view. So we want to transform it. Okay, we want to change its size. So we click on transform and here we can scale it up and down on the X and Y axis. So what we're going to do is we are going to make it a quarter of the size. So we'll make it 0.25 on the X, 0.25 on the Y, and now we have it about a quarter of the size that it was, and we can take it and move it anywhere we like. Okay. Right. In order to make our airship move, we're going to have to add some code to make it move. The way we're going to do that is by attaching a script to the airship. So you can click on new script. It says that everything is valid here. It's attaching our script. It's calling our script Airship, and it's using the GDScript programming language. We can click on create, and now we're in our Airship script. I'm going to delete some of the comments which are not necessary at this moment, and we see that we have one function called ready and we have another function called process delta that is commented out at the moment. Alright, ready is the first function that runs when your airship appears basically, and it only runs once. Your process delta function, that is the game loop, and it will run once every frame, and most Godot games run at 60 frames per second. So this is your game loop. It's continually running, continually checking for input and updates and so on and so forth. We can add our own function to this program, or we can say function, let's call it underscore move to move our character around, and this is the function that will define how our character moves. Now what we want to do is when we press the right arrow, we want to move our character to the right. So we're going to have a little if statement that says if let's say if is action pressed, sorry, we have to go to the input system. So it's going to be input dot is action, spelling, input dot is underscore action pressed, and now we want UI right. Okay, so if they're pressing the key that is mapped to the string called UI right, we'll move our player to the right. And what we have to do to move him is update his X position. So we'll say his position is now going to be equal to his position, sorry, his X position. So position dot X is now equal to his position dot X plus 1. That'll move him 1 to the right. If you're wondering how do I know what key is linked to UI right, you can come up here and go to the project settings, click on input map, and here you can see all these user interface bindings. And you can even add your own ones. But if we go here to UI right, you can see that the keyboard key is the right arrow. Or it could be a D-pad right on a game controller. You can even add and change the keys yourself if you wanted to. But we'll leave it as it is for now. Okay, so what we're saying here is that when we call our function underscore move, if they're pressing the right key, his position, the position of our character on the screen will update by 1 every time it's pressed. So now what we can do is uncomment the game loop, and we can call our move method. And we can go ahead and test this. So firstly, we should save it. And now it's asking we want to save our scene, which is our player scene, which was the node that we created there. We'll say save. Now we have a scene. Now when we want to play it, it'll say, well, you've never played it before. What's your main scene? Well, we've only got one. So we go player scene and say open. Here we have our ship. And if I press right, he starts to fly across the screen. That's exactly what we wanted. Now this is not ideal at the moment because well, we can't move in any other direction, but also it's pretty slow and we have no way of controlling the speed. So what we could do is we could add a global variable up at the top here, and we could add a variable that's visible when we go to the properties of the airship. At the moment there's no property here called speed. We can add it by going to the script and saying export this variable. It'll export it to this properties sheet. Let's call it speed and give it a value. Let's say 40. And now you see that we have our script variables here. Speed is now in the properties window, and we can adjust speed over here without having to go back to our script every time. So now instead of updating the position by 1, we can update it by speed, and if we change speed over there, you know, it will change as well. So let's run it again and see. Yeah, now we're really flying across the screen. Okay, right, let's add in another if statement, so that if input dot is action pressed UI left, then we update position, and here's a little position.x. Here's a little shortcut so that we don't have to write position.x again. We can just say plus equals minus speed. Okay, so this is the same as this one. It's the same as saying position.x equals position.x plus speed, but we're saying position.x is equal to position.x plus negative speed. So this is going to move you in the opposite direction, which is left, which is opposite to right. So if we run now, we can move right, we can move left. Great. It would be good if our sprite faced in the direction that it was moving. So let's add in that. That's quite simple to achieve. All we have to do is when we are moving to the right, when we're moving to the left, we flip the horizontal. So we say flip H equals true. So we flip it. And when we are moving to the right, because that's the default way the sprite is facing, we unflip it. So we say flip horizontal equals false. So we can go and test that. Fly right, fly left. Okay, and there we have our little hovercraft moving left and right. Now, what if we didn't want him just to be flying around in a gray background? What if we wanted some kind of image at the back here? Well, what we can do is click on our player and add another node. And we can add a texture rectangle. It's a control for drawing textures or for putting a texture on. And we say create. So now we've got a texture rect, but you'll see that the texture rect is empty. Again, Godot makes it very easy to import things. So I'm going to go and drag and drop a background that I have found, a space background here. It's just a JPEG. And I can drag it and put it on, drag it and release it on my textures property of the texture rect. And I get a background. But now it's covering my sprite. So what I actually want to do is go to its visibility property over here. And I want to say show behind on. And so now it's gone to the background. I can also expand it. Actually, so scale it. Let us scale it. And we can just make it full our entire viewport. So now if I press play, I have a ship that can fly around in a background. And that is a nice, simple way to start your game development journey. You've learned a little bit of programming. You've learned how to import textures and sprites, and you've learned how the keys are mapped in Godot. I hope you enjoyed this video. See you again next time.